Hello and welcome back to another episode with On Location with Rekha and Gabby. I'm Rekha. I am going to be your host today, and we have Gabby behind the camera here today. We are also sitting with Diana.
Hi.
Of Art of Charcuterie. Hi, thank you so much for having us here today.
You're welcome.
How have you been doing?
Pretty good.
Awesome.
Pretty busy.
Yes, I imagine. I mean, we had met Diana at the social welcoming and grand opening of Spilt Bar in downtown Edmonton, and Diana was there providing a curated selection of meats and cheeses that were absolutely delicious, and I think some of the greenery as well, right? The like the olives and,
Yes.
and all that. So that was an absolutely delicious experience, which was only made better by Diana's little bites there that were, oh my gosh. I can't even explain how ready I was to just like reach out and grab my own right there and then. Anyways, Diana, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where the art of charcuterie comes from?
Sure. Well, I'm a British lass.
Yes, she is.
Originally from St Helens, which is just a little town outside Liverpool, north of England. Mm-hmm. So I grew up loving food as a Matorian, but only on fish and chips and mushy peas and things like that. Comfort food, but all local vegetables. That time there was the fruit and veg were just right from the ground.
There is something so delicious about the freshest vegetables that you can eat. It's just it's the real taste of them. Yeah.
So in the 70s there was no pesticides or anything like that. So I grew up knowing good quality food, and then I traveled over to Spain for 4 or 5 years, and that's when I first had my experience of like prosciuttos and just cheeses and just fish and just different things that I'd never experienced, and I think my palate just exploded, and I didn't realize at the time, but I was really following a culinary. I wanted to know more about food, and it led me to so many different places, and I was in Australia for 10 years as a flight attendant on a private aeroplane, and I was working with a chef on board as well, so I learned lots of things there. So I traveled extensively, and then landed in Edmonton and met my husband, and then I started working after having my son I worked at a venue, created this really sweet venue, and then I started networking, and then my friend said to me, "Can you put something together, Diana, with charcuterie and cheese?" And this was in 2018, and they love wood, so I just did this elaborate table, and I just made it up, and people had, the response was so wonderful that I went, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to make a business out of this."
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I've seen the cards that you have. Diana had handed us a card of hers that had photos of her real charcuterie designs, and they're absolutely gorgeous, like full of vibrant color. You can almost tell what the meats taste like just by looking at them. It's almost this like beautiful imagery. Yes, you can even thank you, Gabby. Just sheepishly, just gorgeous. Here, I'll bring it up to the camera just to make it easier to see. But this is literally her card. Absolutely gorgeous, extremely memorable. So, yeah, oh my gosh, just the idea of you having started off by putting something together.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it was like. I had no business experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm well-traveled, I have a really good palette, and I love architecture and design. Mm-hmm. So I think in that moment, everything just came to one point, and I had something that I knew in my heart I wanted to do. So I just was like on fire with this idea. And at the time, there was the grazing tables hadn't started yet, the charcuterie trend hadn't opened up yet. And because I was looking for things to like, who else does this? And there was nobody. And so I just started. Just started. Awesome. I mean, Instagram was amazing because I just started making things at home at first. Mm-hmm. And then, I realized to have a business, you need to take certain steps. First, mm-hmm. finding a commercial kitchen so you can be a caterer. And then I went to Business Link in Edmonton. And an amazing man called David started me off, helping me what you need to get your steps of your business. Because I was so green, I really didn't know what the next step was. And from there, I just started taking one step at a time. And as I said, when people started seeing my work and what I was doing, I just got a lot of attention very quickly. And yeah, that was the start of it all.
That's wonderful. It's amazing. Do you have any, I guess, like, were there any moments where you're just like, this is it, this is exactly what I want to do forever?
Yeah, I mean, that happened on the first, when I first did this for a friend. That was my moment. So it all came together in that moment. And I think the overwhelming part of it was like, how do I take the next steps? And how do I make this a business that is profitable and also delivering really high quality foods? And so I started to doing a lot of research, and I realized that I wanted to use pasture raised and grass fed meats. So ethical meats, and that was really important to me. And then I just started to educate myself as I was working. And then the design thing, I just started putting things together, you know. I was, as a little girl, I used to always love tidying my room and putting it together. And it was just like the same, I was translating everything I'd learned from my life experiences and put it into this. It was a development, and I mean, it didn't happen overnight, and it's just been a constant learning and development, making mistakes, picking yourself up, taking the next step. But the basics really was getting a good kitchen, and then just starting, and then making the contacts as well, networking a lot, giving a lot of free samples out at different gatherings and networking events. And then Muley's asked me to join them, which is an artisan deli. And they said that they hadn't seen anything like this, and they wanted me to work from there. So that was a huge step. But then COVID happened.
Of course. Yeah.
And it was quite extraordinary for me, because that's when I put everything in a box. That was the next thing. What am I going to do? So I was just brainstorming and
bringing something artisanal to people straight to them, so that they can take it home and still like enjoy that bit of art for themselves.
A little treat in the midst of like people staying at home because all the restaurants were closed. But fortunate for me, a lot of the amazing chefs were at Muley's too, and they were pickling, because they were all out of work. So I immersed myself into an amazing crowd of people, and they just took me on, and I developed so many different levels of culinary skills, and my palate developed, and it was like a hibernation, like a hub for me, and I'm ever so grateful for that. So that was my initial, because I wasn't doing events then, it was just everything in a box. But I did really, really well. And so then when COVID was over, I decided that I needed my own, I need my own kitchen. And my husband made my own kitchen here at Modest Meats. And now I'm doing a lot of events, and a lot of styled, curated events, and a lot of cheese and pairings too, so that I like putting things together that taste good. So it can look beautiful, but if the food quality doesn't match that, then that has to match that for me.
Exactly, yeah, definitely. And I love that you have done your own research into the different types of meats and the kind of sourcing that you're doing. For the people at home who aren't really educated, what does it mean for, I guess, like the end product and for quality of life of an animal when they're grass-fed, and a little bit about the pasteurization?
Well, I mean, I learned a lot from an amazing charcuterier called Will, and he educated me on just the fat content, what the animal eats goes straight into the animal, the grazing, the taking care of the animals, all of that has an effect on the end product. And when I tasted his meat and different kinds of meat, I tasted the difference. And then, people don't like to eat fat, but good fat quality is so good for you.
Yeah.
And so it just was centered for me inside my heart that this was good. I was offering something good, and so that really took a hold of me. And there's some amazing French salamis and some Spanish salamis that are acorn fed as well. That the pigs are fed with acorns, and you can taste it. So it was just a natural process for me to go that route. It is more expensive, but it's just one of my core values of my business to keep on that as much as I can, and of course to use as many local producers here in Alberta as possible, from the farmers, like now all the fresh fruit, and well, that's from BC, but Prairie Gardens, for example, are an amazing farm that I use, and they don't use pesticides, or they're just really like real digging farmers, you know, that produce really good, tasty things.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think there's something really important now. I've kind of done, not really research, but I've started trying to lean towards the higher quality meats and vegetables, and honestly, even just tasting the difference in my meal, feeling the difference in my mood, and just seeing a difference in energy level of having these, I guess, I almost want to say better cared for sources of food. You know, there's something really wonderful about a farm and that really cares about what they're doing.
Yeah,
you can really feel that love and care that they put into their animals and their crops, and it can just be so much more fun too. Even just getting to dive into something that seems so special, but almost feels like should become the new normal.
Yes.
It almost even blends into like our health and well-being.
Totally.
Right?
So it really comes down to that. Mm-hmm. And there's so much good produce here in Alberta and around the Edmonton area, and the farmers markets, and you know, food's going up incredibly. The food costs are going up incredibly, and to still stay on that, you know, path of giving as good as you can find is on one of my core values too. And it's good to support each other here in the culinary scene in Edmonton, because we really do need to support the farmers and the local producers as much as possible.
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, there's something really wonderful about coming into a space, and even coming into here in Modest Meats, and seeing a lot of these labels and bottles that are kind of new to me. A lot of the product in here looks like it's quite local, and very well sourced and thought out. And even just going to, I guess, our local farmers markets and picking something up that's very, I guess, like well cared for, absolutely delicious, and can completely change the experience of your meal, and really gives you that like joie, like, you know, like that real joy of eating what you've prepared for yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about what it has been like finding inspiration and just curating these boxes for people?
Well, I'm always researching different things. I love books, and you know, there's so much that comes into an inspiration of creating something beautiful. Because when you look at something beautiful with food, for example, your digestive system starts to move immediately, and so that's a really lovely part. Is putting little things somewhere that somebody might not notice, but you know, if they taste that with that particular plum, for example, then they're going to get an experience. So you leave that for the person who's buying it. Don't explain all that, unless I'm at a charcuterie event, and then I like to engage people in the table, so it's very interactive, where I'll say, try this with this, you might not have tried it. For example, there's a coffee bellavitano, like it's an aged cheddar cheese, and I pair that with dulce de leche, which is a caramel from Argentina, and Jacek chocolate. And people are never, it's like cheesecake, but live cheesecake. And so I'm always finding different things to put together that are maybe a little unusual, and that's the fun part of it, is like we have a test lab.
Really?
Yeah, just to test things out with the staff. What do you think that is? Does that work? Does that not work? So everything is curated and thought through, and that's it. That's the exploration we do every month to find out, you know, what's the next pairing we're going to do, and that's really great, because we love to pass that on to our loyal customers. So they're not getting the same all the time. So if they order a box one month, they're going to find different things in the next month, and just to keep that ball rolling, so it's an enjoyable experience consistently.
Oh, so every month you guys are doing something different, and is that something that's available as like a subscription? Like, how does that work?
Well, we haven't done that yet, but that's next.
That's
the next on the line. We've just been so busy that I just need to. That's the next thing we'd like to set up, is a subscription, so that people can enjoy that every month, something prepared and look forward to. And yeah, I like engaging our customers as well to what their likes and dislikes is. And first of all, when I first started, I would ask people what kind of cheese they liked. Oh my God, that was a nightmare.
Like I don't know. It's cheese. Like what do I do? Or it's like this specific cheese from this specific market.
Yeah, it was not a good business model. I mean, I learned very quickly that everybody's likes and dislikes and palates were so different. So then I just generalized. Okay, there's going to be one like a brie kind of camembert cheese, one aged cheese, one mountain cheese, one semi-soft cheese, and then there's a variety of that. So there's a different textures of the cheeses, and that's worked really well. And of course, most people, the one thing they don't like is blue cheese, which I love.
Oh, I love blue cheese.
Me too.
There's something really wonderful about blue cheese, and you know, little tangent here. I started making myself like chicken and waffles.
Oh yeah.
And sprinkling some blue cheese on top of there with like, you know, like a special hot sauce and maybe some kind of like aioli. Wow. Just really, that cheese almost like when it almost melts into everything and it just works out so well. There is something so wonderful about exploring like cheeses that may not seem super popular. Yeah. But blue cheese, oh my gosh, has a special spot in my heart, truly.
You have to try Shropshire Blue. It's from England. It's an orange cheese with blue vein. It's incredible.
Really?
Shropshire Blue.
That sounds really. Do you guys have that here?
I have a little bit left. I'll have to get you to try it. It's a really good one.
There we go. Super special. All right. Oh, we have a question from Gabby. It says, do you think folks don't enjoy blue cheese here because of how it's made here? Is it made? Oh, are there better ones? Interesting.
I just think it's a particular flavor in the mouth, and also it's mold, like the blue.
It can be
and
really
so that's
weird for people.
That's off-putting for people because they think mold is not a good thing, but it's very different. I'm not a cheesemaker, so I don't have the whole background to that. But it's not like that. But it is an acquired taste. Yeah. It's quite strong and pungent, and but it pairs well with like duck and pears, but it is a particular.
It is. I think that we grow up hearing certain types of words, especially like the word mold. Yeah. And we hear it as such a negative thing. So then when we get older and we use these similar words on, I guess, foods that have an acquired taste or foods that are a little bit more delicate, or even just, different from what you would normally have in your daily food intake. I think when we hear those kind of words that are kind of scary and weird, applied to those types of foods, that's it. That's the connection that's made in our minds, and we're like, nope, I'm not having blue cheese. That's mold, and it's like, I'm pretty sure it's not really a mold per se, but that is the kind of like the word that we use for it. Yeah. But it's just a particular strain of, I don't even know what the right word would be, but it can be different in all these different cheeses, and it can be so good, absolutely ridiculously good. But when we say aged cheese,
yes.
Wow.
Well, I have an amazing super aged cheese at the moment. I love Sylvan Star. They're in Red Deer, so they're Albertan. They're Gouda makers, and they make exceptional Gouda. And I'm always saying, do you have anything a little bit different? And they've got this very, very, very aged Gouda at the moment, and it's like got crystals in it, and it's great with some beef like pastrami.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I grew up really loving just making a little board of something and picking off of it, and then getting older and people saying, well, this is something you can order in a restaurant, like a charcuterie board. I'm like, what? My snack board is a charcuterie board? I've been doing it right this whole time, right? And I think it's really exciting for people to get to dive into something, especially when we're looking at something like this. That is super exciting to look at, and
I mean, that's how my name came, because I was like thinking what I'm going to Charcuterie by Diana, charcuterie. I wanted to use the word charcuterie instead of grazing because grazing boards is like, in Alberta, it's like cows. And
yeah, a little bit. The grazing is a little cowy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't want to be a trend either. And charcuterie was, although people have difficulties pronouncing that word, I was really clear that was my name. And then what do I do? And I was like, oh, I make art out of charcuterie. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Simple, practical art of charcuterie. That's how the name came along. And then I've done some classes too, and it's really fun because people are really a little nervous of when they see my board and like, I can't do that, but it's just really beautiful chaos.
You can.
You can't make a thing wrong. Sorry.
No. I think that's so beautiful to like see something and go like, this is such a higher level that my brain can't even compute it. It almost feels like that's the moment they realize that's how far they can go. And they're like, but I'm used to this tiny little circle. And I mean, that circle is kind of made by us and the way we grow up a little bit, where we go, no, it's got to be symmetrical, or it's got to be like organized, or it has to be in little trays. No, it doesn't. It can all touch. The food can all touch. And I think that can be a little intimidating for people. But man, that is so good to hear that you do classes.
Well, I've done a few just private classes, and I probably will pick that up. But if you really saw me making a charcuterie board, sometimes I'll just throw something on a board and it'll just look like a flower. Like it's like painting a picture. Yeah. You have your little tricks and everything, but sometimes I just put something somewhere and see what it looks like. The spontaneity of where things land, for example. So I am not a fixed person on when I create. It's like painting a picture. You move things around, you look at angles, you see what pops, and you're always looking for heights and things like that. So I'm really having fun with it.
Oh, that's exciting. That's super exciting. I think we have a question from Gabby. What's one meat/protein source you were pleasantly surprised by? Ooh. Oh, yes. There's a salami from the Pyrenees, from a particular, I think it's called Atizia. This gentleman saved the whole mountain range because he made these pigs feed off acorns, and not made them, but he fed them acorns. And then there's this meat called Jesus Depin, and it is the most exquisite salami that I've ever tasted. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, you can really taste the earthiness of the acorns and the what the pigs have been eating. It's like it really comes out. I've never tasted anything quite like it. Really? That sounds pretty exciting. And when you say earthiness, I'm like, I almost feel like I know what this is going to taste like. Such a like lovely word to use when it comes to our foods. And I love a good, is it pastrami you said? Or
no, it's salami. It's salami.
Oh,
it's
my
pork.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So exciting. Just so you folks know, we will be getting a little tour of Diana's workshop in the back to see what goes on behind the scenes. But yeah, we'll just give you that little tidbit for now, so stay tuned for that. But I never thought that it would be anything more than just grain-fed meats or grass-fed meats, and I mean sometimes I've even imagined like apples, like pigs eating apples, but I've never thought of them eating something different like an acorn. And I almost wonder if I've even seen an acorn in person, to be honest, but that sounds really exciting. How did you come across this?
Oh, there's you search out all the suppliers and producers, and actually I was in Calgary, and there's an amazing cheese shop down there called Pheasant Cheese Shop, and I just asked for, have you got any salamis that that are as unusual, and they gave me this, so I was like, wow. I have to find the supplier, and the supplier's he's here in Edmonton, so he supplies French salamis here in Edmonton. He's based in Edmonton, so you just find where the distributors are, because you can't find it in stores.
Okay, I see. So it's definitely a lot more, hide and seek and research than per usual. Oh, Hi there. Oh, we're just doing a little filming here. Lovely. Yes. So the shop is open right now. We're at Modest Meats.
Oh no.
No, don't worry. It's all good. We're at Modest Meats right now, which is open. So if you're around, you got to bring yourselves down to check it out. But for now, I think we'll just take a little break here, and we'll be back right away. Okay, and we're back. We are on location with Rekha and Gabby, and today we're talking to Diana from Art of Charcuterie. So we've got another question here from Gabby that says, ooh, something about learning opportunities. Okay, let's see. Did your first board come together easily, and were there learning opportunities from it? Oh, okay.
Well, the first board I ever did, I just separated everything. So I had the meat over here and the cheese over here, and it was very sparse. So it was like a farmhouse table with just like pieces of meat and cheese. I didn't go into the whole decor of the place. And then it just started experimenting and putting things, as you know, people sometimes like things separate. So it was like more deconstructed at first, but then I started to weave it all together, and that's been a whole development and learning as I've gone, just trial and error really, just really not being afraid to explore the table, as long as it was, and actually watching people eat the board, how they engage in the board, what is best for them. Sometimes it's best separate, and sometimes people like the exploration of it. It depends what type of client you have and what they're serving. So I'm always interested in those fine details when I'm doing catering, is what is the audience? What are they gonna? How is it easy for them to get the cheese and meat very easy? For example, I did a board for a lawyer's company, and it was an amazing table, beautiful. And then I left. I come back 2 hours later. No, they hadn't touched it, because they were so used to eating, being passed around appetizers. They didn't really know. It was too beautiful for them to touch. So that surprised me, and I wasn't, but then I engaged them in the table, and
like, you can get in there, you can touch things.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I have to watch, because sometimes that's the thing I get. It's too beautiful to touch.
Yeah.
And so I have to bring in the word ravish. It's meant to be ravished. And so when one starts, then people, they just get in. But the first person starting, that's hard.
I believe it. Anytime I've seen like a really nice put together spread, it's almost that thing where everyone looks at each other around the room, especially with, like, I would say almost like ethnic cultures. It's like everyone looks at each other like, who's gonna go first? Because that'll dictate when we all eat, because we don't do times, and then we go, is everyone here? Is it fair to start yet? And then the very last piece, I don't know if you know this or have had this experience where everyone's like fighting to like be polite. They're like, no, you have it. It's okay. You can have the last piece. It's fine. And deep down we're like, don't eat the last piece. It's for me. Don't eat the last piece. It's for me. We have that little fear of like, everyone's gonna eat the one last piece, but we just gotta be really polite about it. But yeah, I can imagine what it would be like to be those people who are like, I don't want to ruin it, right? Because it's like feasting with your eyes is so exciting, and once it's gone, you don't get to see it as much anymore. You don't get to like really absorb that through your. Well, I guess like one of my favorite senses is to be able to see things and then go in and eat them. But are there any other like really memorable events that were just like, just that little reminder that this is exactly what you want to do?
We did an amazing event for the Citadel. Actually, we're doing all the opening night, Citadel Theatre here in Edmonton. Oh. We are doing all the media night opening nights now, but one of our first ones we did for them was, because we liked, their theme was Sound of Music, so we designed a Sound of Music charcuterie, and it was like, we had toadstools and flowers and mounds and hills, and all the food was like little hills, and we just really went to town on the design of the table, and it was spectacular, and it got ravished.
Wow.
And so when you see it all go, and then it's the right amount of food as well, because sometimes with charcuterie, you don't know how much there's a kind of rule of how much per person, but really you don't know how people are going to eat that night.
Yeah.
That's always a learning stage, is how much you put on the table. And so, but this time everything was just went according to plan. It was just amazing. So that was a memorable for us anyway.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's so exciting. And Gabby happens to...
I'm just going to ask this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
The scroll thing is being very weird today. How do you come about kind of like your flavor pairings? I know that like one thing that I really enjoyed was at the Spilt event, I wasn't able to have pork. So
Right.
you were like, I got just the thing, and you switched up to something else. Does that kind of like come to you naturally? Was it a lot of like tastings, like experience? Like how do you find the
Oh,
profiles?
yeah.
Good question. Yes, it is a lot of trial and error, and also I do cater for people because there's so many allergies these days. So I do a lot of no pork charcuterie, so beef, elk, duck, bison, and so they always have that on hand. And also vegetarian too. People don't eat meat, so I do a lot of cheeses, and I'm always trying to find. I haven't really found a good substitute for meat for vegetarians, so I keep them really on the cheeses and some dips and things like that because. I haven't found a really good substitute meat, and a lot of vegetarians don't like that anyway. And and then I just try, as I said, we have this test lab, and we try and pair things together. If that cheese, does that go with pork, or does it go with beef, or does it go with both? And if it goes with both, then that's a great option for these little bites that you might find in Spilt Bar, for example. So, yeah, we're just trial and error. I've got to make the Flavor Bible, which is an incredible culinary book, that you can go through that book and for years and experiment with flavors, and that's what we do. We experiment and get new cheeses in and try them, and trial and error is the way to go.
That sounds like such a great time too. I mean, like, oh no, we have to do a little flavor lab and try everything together and see what happens. That sounds like a really good time to me.
Yeah.
So I think we might bring people in to show them a little bit of what you do behind the scenes.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. We'll be right back here. We're going to head on to the back with Diana with Art of Charcuterie.